Well, a lot was discussed today, and I'm sure you're thinking about all the different ideas that came out of this. I'm not going to try to even summarize this. This is going to be a very difficult thing to do. I just want to give you a few things to sort of think about. I know this morning I gave you a sort of an overview of our region. Now I want to use some of the material that was discussed and some of the elements of my own thinking to sort of wrap up and let you go by 3 o'clock. Because for some reason, having lived in big cities, always I think of 3 o'clock as the beginning of traffic problems. I need to finish by 3. So, as you heard all day long, everything is connected to each other. The jobs cannot be separate from housing, housing cannot be separate from transportation, transportation from education, education back to economy. But fundamentally, what is really important for us to ask is what kind of jobs, for what kind of housing, for what kind of transportation, what I started this morning. Affordability is in the eye of the beholder. You heard that today. It is not just simply the median multiple, which I used this morning as well, but it is really looking at the whole issue of housing with dignity. And one element for you to know, because you heard the luncheon keynote, I want you to know that in the recent years, just past few years, one of the important statistics for the United States is that poverty rates are growing faster in the older suburbs than the inner city and other regions. So some of these places where the immigrants are moving to and minorities are moving to, these older suburbs have a series of issues. But the way to think forward maybe is to put things into a positive terms. I want to sort of give you a few things to sort of think about and see how you feel about it. In the old economy, which we call industrial economy, we required a specific infrastructure. We needed ports, we needed rail, we needed highways. And this is exactly what we did. Look at this region. We have all of those elements built in. Civil engineers were not, and I hope there are no civil engineers here, but civil engineers, sorry, I know there's one. Civil engineers were not kind to Tacoma, and they were not kind to Pierce County. They bypassed city, they went over cities, they connected with one exit. They really didn't think about the visuality of this region, because in the old economy, everything was about movement. Everything was how to get from one point to another. Goods and people had to be moved really fast. And there was some other economic imperative that they had to work with, and that is concentration of jobs. They had to concentrate, and agglomeration economies, geeky academic words, had to be sort of created, but at the same time, that created pollution, that created externalities that allowed people to sort of begin to have and confirm their anti-urban, anti-city attitude, and the departure that you all know very well began to happen. So we had concentration of jobs and dispersion of population. The new economy, what kind of infrastructure does that need? You heard it all day. It's quality of life. It's about how we experience cities and how we experience it together. It is about educational quality, it's about entertainment. We like our cities to be diverse, but one issue that we have to always ask is demographically, why is not our inner cities are not yet attractive to everybody? What does it take for us to go over the next step? In other words, not simply what people say in terms of where they want to live, but how people come to know the city differently. And I would like to suggest one thing. The greatest failure of the 1970s environmental movement was its lack of attention to minority interest and lack of attention to how to talk about environmental issues to a population for whom economy was fundamentally important, and as such, environmental narratives did not come across as a positive element of the job. I think what we are doing now is somewhat similar. We are selling sustainability, we are selling better modes of transportation, all of that under the middle class taste. We need to think about how these address all classes. How do we talk about mobility for all classes, not just the middle class taste of perhaps starting with the 300 square foot apartments and then moving up to the 3,000 square foot condo in the sky that Lauren was talking about. So in one element of that is that we have this fundamentally different type of cities. And my argument has been in the past 10, 15 years is the following. Jobs have dispersed. We have now what we call multi-centered jobs. You saw on the map that I showed you this morning, even this region has multiple centers. We need to think about connectivities. We need to think about the idea of accessibility. We need to sort of begin to think about cities differently. The old planning approach, the old ways of thinking of the old industrial cities is not working for us. So how do we do things? Let me remind you of a phrase you heard today. Trends are not destiny. And what I showed you this morning is not the destiny of this region. Their destinies are made. Things can change. So moving forward, a couple of ideas for us to think about. Let's think of not just Tacoma, not just downtown, let's think of regions. All cities are global. Our friend Peter Taylor tells us that any city that thinks that it's not global is not understanding what global means. And in the global marketplace, you have to position yourself in a way that is attractive, not only to the economy makers, the investors, but also to the employees. Employers will not look at a region that does not provide the best quality of life for their employees. That's fundamentally important. Imagine yourself in an economic hierarchy that includes the entire globe. Cities now talk to other countries directly for investment. They do not go through the states. They do not go through the national government. Cities are empowered now to connect with each other and grow together, and we need to look at that. So we need to do that, but we cannot do that without a collective vision. And what I mean by that one, 30 cities and one county cannot have 31 different visioning. There has to be a single vision that allows us to move forward. And for that to happen, it's fundamentally important for you to realize when the entire region speaks one language and one vision, then we can be heard globally. And in some of my classes, I always say that global presence means you scream really loud in order to be heard. And to scream really loud is not one thing, is not two things. It's the collective of the package that you need to move forward. In moving forward, leadership matters, and single focus on that vision matters. Brookings Institute issued a study a few years ago, and I don't know, there's no reason for you to know this one. Brookings creates a list of most distressed cities. And 3 of those cities were not in there in 2000, and by 2010, they were way gone. One of the fundamental reasons Brookings wanted to know, and they came back, they said leadership and focus. Leadership focus. There was a third ingredient that Ron Sims talked about and Bruce Kendall talked about, and here is the version I sort of had this last slide of my talk this morning. I want to sort of end on that one. One of the cities in which it survived the distress era and moved out of its industrial sort of quagmire was city of Akron. And city of Akron did something. It utilized its university, it utilized its expertise, it expanded the region, worked with the region, and tried to help, and it did help, not only in developing the best polymer science in the country. I think Akron University is now ranked number 2 in the country in that. But they built it with a primary purpose that their students, their graduates, their R&D could help that region develop a corridor that went from Akron all the way to Cleveland. They worked not just within the city of Akron, they worked with the region. They worked with the entirety of the region. Universities have a role to play. Universities can help. And fundamentally, it's important. I do not know of a lot of communities in this country that have actually gone out and asked for a university. This region has actually done that. This morning you heard it. So the Ferrari is here. What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to go? Building a university is great, but what you do with it is something more important, which means that's why we call ourselves an anchor institution and an urban serving university. We want to grow with you. It's not that we come here as academics lecturing you what to do. We want to know what role we can play in the process of implementing the vision that this region has, not the vision that we create. It's not for us to tell you what vision you should have. It is for you to have, and let us be a partner for it. Let me sort of end with a couple of things. There's also research to show that regions that don't work and do not utilize their universities can become the net exporter of their working age population. I'll let you decide what kind of region you want to be. I wish you best. Thank you for being with us all day. And I want to thank all the panelists and all the speakers for a wonderful day of conversation and a lot to think about. See you at our lectures and other events. Thank you.